Hi, my name is K.Thomas, W1DED. Tim Duffy, K3LR, is the CEO of DXE Engineering, the ham radio powerhouse that we all rely upon. But he's also a competitive contester and owns a legendary contest station. When I heard that Tim was going to be going to the WRTC in Bologna, Italy, as an observer, not as a competitor, I thought that would be a really interesting perspective, so I invited him on the show. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you coming back. I really enjoyed our last conversation. So you must be just recently back from Italy, is that right?
That is true. I got back last week, and I think I might be over the jet lag.
Well, perfect timing then. So as I said in my opening, I'm really intrigued to hear your perspective. I talked to Randy Thompson yesterday, K5ZD, from the perspective of sitting in front of that radio for 24 hours, and that was really interesting. But I'm really intrigued to hear your experience as an observer, somebody who went that didn't sit in front of a station, but was interacting with a lot of the operators. Just give us a quick overview to start, if you would.
This was a very different WRTC for me. My first WRTC was in 1996 in San Francisco, and I've operated 5 times as part of Team USA at WRTC. But this time was really, really good because I had no pressure. I actually was on the air for about 18 hours out of the 24 at a friend's station in northern Italy, IK2 Yankee Charlie Whiskey, Claudio, who has a great station. And my sole goal, Kevin, during that whole contest period was to work the WRTC stations. And so I made almost 400 contacts with WRTC stations. And it was great because, after the contest was over, I got to interact with all the people that I had communicated with during WRTC, and they were very appreciative for the contacts. And I also got to talk to a few friends back in the U.S. So, but a much different perspective than normal.
Well, this is all starting to make sense for me now because I couldn't quite imagine, Tim, you sitting in a hotel room, tapping your toes, waiting for people to get back on Sunday. So the fact that you're in front of a radio makes 100% sense. If you would, since you have a lot of experience with other WRTCs, I'm curious your take on how this one was different. I know in talking to Randy, the stations were located in houses or bed and breakfasts, but tell us more about how this was different than, say, the one in Boston or Germany before that.
It was a really great move on the choice of the Italians to put in bed and breakfasts because some of them had air conditioning, which in this time of year in Italy, it is wicked hot. I don't know that I've been hot like that for a week and a half, but boy, I'll tell you, it was hot. So the B&B part of it, and each one of these WRTCs is unique, Kevin. Most of them have been intense. I can remember being in Moscow in 2010, and the sweat was just pouring off of me at 3 a.m. In a tent. But I think that the Italians did a great job of putting together an event. 58 stations. I mean, Kevin, can you imagine 58 field day setups these guys put together? And for the most part, they worked very, very well. And thousands of contacts were made by each one of the competitor stations. For almost 5,000 contacts in the span of 24 hours, which is just incredible, both on CW and sideband. So very traditional, but I don't know that anybody felt like they had an advantage from a QTH perspective. It was great to, when the contest was over, I was in the hotel, the host hotel, and saw all the teams come back, and they had to drop off their memory stick, which included their log and also the audio recordings. And, it was really everybody just seemed to be very, very happy and very hopeful that they would finish close to the top.
Well, I appreciate the positive perspective, first of all. It probably bears mentioning that this event was supposed to happen in 2022. Therefore, that's why the title WRT 2022, it obviously got delayed because of COVID, so the Italians had to deal with that delay. And then from what I understand, they had extensive flooding that actually caused some disruption with some of the stations. So you're 100% right. There was a tremendous amount of effort that was put into it. And Randy did say in my conversation yesterday that he fully appreciated that air conditioning. Much different when you're in a tent and dealing with whatever the elements are, right? It's heat, it's rain, high winds. So thank you for that positive perspective. So you're back at the hotel on Sunday and you're seeing people come back. What's some of the feedback that you're hearing from people?
Just how good the conditions were, that 15 meters was open almost the entire contest. 20 meters was open, just fabulous, great conditions. So, the fact that it was delayed from 2022 to 2023 had a very positive impact on, what is going to be a really good solar conditions here in the next few years. But leading up to it, conditions were great. I mean, I worked the U.S. on 10 meters during the contest, and that doesn't always happen. That's sporadic. But the bottom line is that solar conditions were very good, and I think all the teams were very excited about that. That was the one thing. And the great thing about Randy and his partner Tom was that their site manager is a very close friend of mine, K3LR, who got pressed into service. And this is how the WRTCs go. You go over as a visitor, and then suddenly you're a site manager. And so Barney, K3LR, was their site manager. He's been my family attorney for over 40 years and a good friend for over 50 years. So this is the best hobby in the world because of the people you meet. But one of the other things that was outside of WRTC was on Monday last week, I actually toured the Marconi Museum. And, Marconi did a lot of things that really changed everything in the world. And maybe somebody else would have invented it, but I just felt, very, very special to be at the place where radio was born, and to see all the memorabilia, and to be with my best friends there at the Marconi Museum. And if it wasn't for this hobby, Kevin, if it wasn't for amateur radio and Marconi, I might not know you, and I might not know the friends that I was with last Monday and during WRTC. And of course, Randy Thompson and I go way back when we were taking our general tests together in Pittsburgh in 1973. So it's come full circle, but WRTC was a resounding success. The Ukrainian team was the gold medal. And, it was extra special, Kevin, to see the Russian teams and the Ukrainian teams at the same table and having fun with amateur radio. So ham radio bridges that gap. And it was a teary-eyed moment for me to see the Russians and the Ukrainians together.
One of the things I'm curious about, Tim, you were there as an observer. Most of the people are there as contestants or referees. How many observers were actually there? How many people go to the WRTC just to hang out with their buddies?
I think there was probably less than 100, observers or visitors. But it's not trivial to get to these WRTCs. And it's an expensive proposition these days to fly to Europe from the US. But there were lots of people that were there just to hang out and have fun and experience it. And I got to, have great conversations with the visitors in addition to the competitors, because obviously the competitors, a lot of them are my very closest friends.
So I know the announcement's been made for 2026. It's going to be in England. Do you have any other details about the next WRTC?
I do actually. I'm on the. I was very honored to be asked to be on the advisory committee for WRTC 2026, and I gladly accepted. Um, Mark M0DXR has a very talented team of UK hams that are leading WRTC 2026, and of course Mark and I go way back. He's been a K3LR operator for many years, and he and his wife actually will be coming to K3LR in October this year, and we'll be having some meetings and planning for WRTC 2026. So I think it's a very exciting time. There's even talk of locations for 2030. So the WRTC buzz has never been better.
I'll look forward to more details coming down the pike. And before we wrap up, and I promised you we would wrap up quickly today after spending an hour with you last time, I do want to shout out to DX Engineering and yourself for doing so many sponsorships. I know you're a big sponsor of the WRTC, but DX Engineering always seems to step up and sponsor DXpeditions and a number of different events, and I don't think the hobby would be the same without it. So thank you to DX Engineering, and thank you to yourself for doing that.
You know, we pride ourselves in giving back, Kevin. That has always been my mantra, and it carries over here at DX Engineering. I'm in the DX Engineering offices today, and this is a great place to work. But it's also, you know, when you're making a buying decision on a radio or buying coax or things like that, think about the fact that DX Engineering does give back and does sponsor ham fests and DXpeditions all over the world, and there's some really exciting ones coming up. And Terry Kate MNJ does a tremendous job making sure that all of our equipment gets to these DXpeditions and out to these ham fests, and so we're very proud to be a part of the best hobby in the world.
I've been talking to Tim Duffy, K3LR, about the WRTC 2022. We'll be looking forward to the WRTC 2026. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Always good to catch up with you.